Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastos, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Nice to have you here. You know, we're going to be very positive again today because I want to talk about, look, I've been doing, the news, especially in New York, for over 4 decades. And I've had the pleasure to work with a lot of great colleagues and journalists that I really admire. And some of these people go back a long way. And I'm going to introduce you to somebody who's very special because she's an award-winning journalist. I mean, she just has a branding for being positive and helping out and finding ways of solutions to problems. And I love that about her. But she's really a top-notch person, has a new book, and we're going to talk about that. But I want you to say hi to Allison Gilbert. Allison is here. Hi, Allison.
I'm so happy to be here. It has been decades since we have known each other.
You know, we were talking about this. We go back to 1989.
Yes, the summer of. I was an intern, your intern. I hit the lottery. I was Ernie's intern. I thought I would just never go home. I was so thrilled to be
This was at CBS in New York.
This was at Channel 2, and I was just over the moon. I learned so much from you.
You know, Allison, I remember that, and my relationships with people are very important to me.
Yes.
And we have stayed in contact all those years, and I remember you were helping, but were you doing, fan mail? Is that what it was?
I was sorting your fan mail. That was my big job. But you know what? I knew nothing. I was starting out. I was in college. What did I know about TV news? And so even seeing how and why viewers were responding to you so positively, that was a dream come true for me. I was seeing the inside of a newsroom, and you showed me how.
Well, you know what? It was a joy for me because I love working with people. But Allison, you have gone from, that internship, learning so many of the basics of journalism, to doing many, many wonderful things. People should know about your career because you've been a reporter, been on the air, you've been a producer, and you're also an author. By the way, I don't want to forget right now because this is very important. This is called The Joy of Connections. The Joy of Connections. And it's 100 Ways to Beat Loneliness, live a happier and more meaningful life. And what's interesting about this, Dr. Ruth Westheimer, who was a sweetheart of a friend for so many years, and you collaborated, Allison, with Pierre, and you've put this book together. This is fabulous. Talk about this right now, because this is very current, okay?
So the book just came out. It was Dr. Ruth's last book. She had final lessons to share. Yeah. The Joy of Connections is all about how we can forge and maintain and sustain meaningful connections with our friends, with our partners, in our communities, and how to make it feel that we belong, because we're in a loneliness epidemic and many people feel othered and they feel that they don't have a place. And so what Dr. Ruth really wanted to accomplish, and she was New York State's ambassador to loneliness. The governor made it so of November of 2023. Wonderful. She was appointed. Yeah. And so this was her effort to combat the loneliness epidemic. And I was so honored to work on it with Dr. Ruth.
You were honored, and I'm sure she was too, to have you there because, you're just such a professional. And Dr. Ruth, we both knew very well. And she was a doll. And in many ways, she just cared deeply about human experiences. She cared about the soul. She was a very profound person who had a lot of knowledge to share with people, very well educated, as you know, and also a media person. But she was talking about some things here. I just opened up the book, Channel Your Inner Shark and Be a Good Listener, among other things. Channel Your Inner Shark. That sounds like an interesting subtitle. Tell me about that.
Well, it was a matter of having a thick skin. We were talking about a certain type of shark that has a really thick skin. And you know what? Sometimes people take things a little bit too seriously.
Too sensitive.
Too sensitive.
Yeah.
And that can actually undermine relationships. So just have a little bit of a sense of humor.
Yeah, and being able to open up, and relax a little bit. Throw parties. Throw parties. Hello, Dr. Ruth.
Yeah, you know what? This is a great recommendation because it's also about not keeping score. If you're always the host and you're starting to get a little resentful that people don't reciprocate, your goal at the end of the day is to spend time with people.
Yeah.
If your friends don't invite you over because maybe, to be honest, maybe their apartment isn't as nice as yours.
Could be, yeah.
Maybe they can't afford to have that extra bottle of wine or soda in the house. It doesn't matter. You keep hosting because you want to have company. Don't have this invisible ledger in your head. That'll only thwart your efforts to really have these great connections.
Yeah, I think these are so basic. And I'm looking at another one here, and this is a word that I use a lot. I did a commentary on it recently. Work at compromise. Compromise is so important, Allison. Being able to find a common ground someplace to say, okay, this is how you feel, this is how I feel, somebody else has a different opinion. But to be able to use the word respect.
Oh, yes.
Respect each other.
Yes.
Compromise.
Yes.
Find a way to make it work.
You know, it's very easy to say the words, but it's really hard to do. And if you are lonely and you're spending a lot of time by yourself, you own the remote control in your house. You always order in what you want to eat. You're not kind of used to making these compromises. But you know what happens? If you start going down the path where you want to deepen a connection and you're not used to giving in and having somebody else get their way sometimes, it's going to really cause a wedge between you and that person. So yes, learn to compromise.
Learn to compromise.
Yes.
She has so many other, and you worked on this book beautifully. And she talks about community here and joining a support group, things along those lines. I think this is so important. She says, cultivate friends outside work.
This is so important.
Yeah.
We spend so much time in the office, but don't get bogged down. When you go home, don't just go home and stream a show, right? You can do that to relax. It's like a Band-Aid. It's good for a while, but eventually the Band-Aid comes off and you have to put yourself in situations that are social in order to meet people. So yes, go to work. Don't just go home. Think about what you can do after work to engage with your neighbors in your community. You know, Dr. Ruth loved this saying, make your town smaller. She was a New Yorker.
Like that.
She lived here since the 1950s. She came to Washington Heights not speaking any English or hardly any English at all.
Yeah, amazing story.
And she made her town smaller. She joined community groups, and that's how Dr. Ruth did it. And it's a great way. It's a good example.
You know, Allison, I've done so many different interviews, and I remember doing a story as well about centenarians and, you know, the common characteristics and common denominators. And being curious about things. People who live to 100 plus, you know, still have that curiosity factor. They want to find out something new that's going on. They're active. They don't sit around that much. You know, they're physically active. They have relationships.
Yes.
And that's very important, having relationships with different people, maybe one close or two close relationships, and believing in a higher level of
but
consciousness.
Can I give you an example? It's not just curiosity about what maybe is in the newspaper or what you're listening to as a podcast. It's being interested in the other human sitting across from you. You are so good at this. And I'm going to give you an example. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Go ahead.
But what makes me just appreciate our friendship so much, you ask me about my kids. You ask me about my husband. That's a different kind of curiosity that's so meaningful because then I get to feel warm, and I get to feel like I'm in your
that's
light,
so sweet.
that I'm important to
Yeah.
you, that you care. And so it's not just curiosity about what's on Broadway.
Right.
It's curiosity about just
life,
another
people.
person.
Absolutely.
Not
and
just
we
you.
need that,
Yeah.
Allison, more than ever now, because we're stuck with these telephones in many ways and all these platforms and devices. But we need to be able to sit and talk to each other,
Yes.
eyeball to eyeball, and ask those questions. How do you feel? How are things going? How are your children? How is your family?
I love that. And in the Joy of Connections, by the way, there's
Yeah.
5 sections.
Yeah.
One of them is about technology, and we can use technology to actually form deeper connections. How can we do that?
Okay.
Shoot someone a text and just say, how are you doing today? Ask them how they're
Right.
doing, and don't
Yeah.
just complain
Right.
about what's going on
True.
with you. We all have enough
Yeah.
to complain about,
We sure do.
right?
Oh, we can always
sure
find
do.
something, that's for sure.
But just take a couple of minutes
I
and
know.
ask about somebody else's life. Ask about their kids.
You mentioned technology.
Yeah.
So, and I know there's a lot of talk about AI, and it's really exploding in many ways. They're spending billions of dollars in investing in AI. Now, how is that going to impact, relationships, our work, how we feel about ourselves? What it's going to mean to, because you keep up with all of this too. What do you think? What's AI going to really do to us?
Well, I don't really have a crystal ball,
Yeah.
right? So we don't really know how it's all going
True.
to play out. But we do know that we are adaptable human beings. So there was a time where TV was new and we adapted. There was a time where iPhones were new and we adapted.
Yeah.
This, of course, is the new technology. And what I'm hoping, I can only tell you what I hope.
Okay.
I hope that we can use AI to cut down the time that it takes to do mundane tasks. And I hope that we don't just fill it with more time in front
Yeah.
of the screens.
Right.
I hope that we can fill this new sense of space to do more of that eye-to-eye connection
We
that we
need that.
all crave. And you know what? If we don't, it'll take years off our life. This is not just, we hope this is something that we can do,
Sure.
forge connections. The United States Surgeon General has said, if we don't spend time on our relationships, it's as dangerous to our health as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day.
That's strong.
So this impacts our mortality. We will
does.
live longer,
Yeah.
Ernie,
Yeah.
if we are positive,
Yeah.
if we invest in our
Yay!
relationships,
I love it.
and if we really spend time nurturing these relationships.
And what you're talking about is a pretty general, topic. And I know that you are a loving mom, wife, and you're just a terrific human being. Let's talk a little bit about, because we both have an interest in children. And kids are very important to us,
Yeah.
and they're influenced by so much that's going on. And you've seen the surveys. A lot of the young people today wish we didn't have the telephone, wish we didn't have the internet, and they would like to be able to go back a little bit to a simpler time when we were doing just this,
Yes.
talking to one another.
Yes.
Is that possible? How do we find a way to do that within our home, within our schools, and anywhere else where we can apply this?
Well, listen, you cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's here.
Right.
So you can decide that in a certain number of minutes or hours in a day to put your phone aside. You can make a choice. Don't let the technology rule you. You rule the technology. So use the technology. It's a tool, but then put it aside. Go outside and engage. And I feel like that is up to us.
Yes.
We have the agency to make a choice with what we do with these tools.
True.
That is the ultimate goal of humanity. How you choose to walk, how you choose to talk, how you choose to behave, and again, how you choose to engage with technology. That'll make all the difference to how you show up
Yeah, I
in
love
the
what
world.
you're saying, because what you're talking about is, you mentioned choices, okay, that we should have the control. And many times when I talk to a lot of young people, when I go out in different schools and so forth, I was
Yeah.
just at Quinnipiac College, for example, wonderful talking to the students, listening, getting the feedback from them. When you're talking with young people, they want to do this, but they feel that many times, because of the influences, that it's very difficult to step out and say, okay, this is who I am. And I think we have to encourage that. We have to find ways to make sure we let them know that they can control their life.
Do you know where the solution is?
Yeah.
It's not black or white. It's not all the time or none of the time. It's you creating a situation for yourself where you can do both.
Yeah.
You can use the technology and separate yourself from the technology.
Yeah.
And if you own your own capacity to make these decisions, if you're the captain of your own ship, then you can do it. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
No one is going to do it for you.
Yes.
You have to show up.
You have to do it, exactly.
And Dr. Ruth, by the way, when we were writing The Joy of Connections, here's something I learned about Dr. Ruth.
Go ahead.
She hated complaining. And you know
True,
what?
I remember that.
When she was 10 years old,
Yeah.
she lost her entire family.
Oh, tragic story.
She had a lifetime, if she wanted to devote to complaining.
Right.
And you know what? She chose not to. That was a decision that she made over the course of her lifetime. We lost her when she was 96 years old.
Right. Good life.
And she still kept that positive notion that she could make a difference, that she still had lessons to share, that life was meaningful, but it all came down to what she wanted to do with her life.
Yeah.
She made the choices, and so can we.
Well, I agree with you. And what we're talking about is people who make excuses. This happened to me. And then when I was a kid and so forth, we all have a story to tell.
Yes.
Everybody can dwell on that negativity, if you want to call it that. But if we look at life and we say, you know what, whatever it was, it helped me to become who I am today. And I can also step out even further. Because, when you read a lot of great biographies, and it doesn't have to be about famous people, but even when you just share stories with people and they tell you about how they overcame something, I love that.
I love that too. And you know what she used to say at every meeting when it was coming to an end? She would ask me one question, Ernie. She would say, when will I see you again? This question is magnificent.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why. It doesn't leave it up to chance that she's going to see me again.
Make a plan.
She wants to make a plan.
Sure.
So no excuses. Make the plan. And then there's something else hidden in this incredible question, when will I see you again?
Yeah.
You know what it does? It makes me feel that she wants
Cares.
to see me again. And you know what? That makes me like her more.
Exactly.
And so if you tell someone, when will I see you again? You know what? You'll have a date to look forward to, and you'll make that person want to spend more time with you. It's this wonderful cyclical magic trick.
That,
it's so great. Yeah. When will I see you again?
She was so magical in many ways. And, when you talk about her wonderful life up to 96 years old, but she worked to the last minute.
Oh, yeah.
Will. And
she worked me to the bone on this book.
I'm sure she did.
It's so funny. Yeah. Every time I would show up to her apartment in Washington Heights, she'd, is it done yet? Is it done yet?
Yeah.
She really wanted to make an impact, even at 96. And by the way, longevity, I believe, really stems from having work that's meaningful, having a reason to get out of bed.
Yes.
And this was her last project that was meant for us.
I love it, and I'm a firm believer in positivity and working and doing something that has passion in your life. Irma Bombeck had a great line. She said, when I die and face God, I'm going to say, I have nothing left. I used all the talent you gave me. and we should go that way, almost empty and using. But we have to be reminded of the gifts that we have. We have to remind ourselves, but there have to be around people, who are going to say, hey, listen, you're doing such a good job at this. Have you thought about that? And why don't you try this? We need to be surrounded. Talk about that for a minute, because, it's important to surround yourself with individuals who have a similar way of thinking and feeling about life. Opinions may be different, but the attitude of wanting to live and live fully is important.
She was a widow.
Yeah.
She lost her beloved Fred Westheimer decades ago. And she would say that the wrong people to be with are other widows who only complain. You want to be with people who may share the experience, but then pivot to wanting to re-engage and to lift each other up. Yeah. And so recognize that who you're surrounding yourself with will actually matter. And very interestingly, the largest section of this book, there's Dr. Ruth's menu for connection that divides much of these 100 ideas for developing these meaningful connections into 5 parts. The largest one, you're going to be so surprised. It's self. It's look at yourself in the mirror. And in a book about connections, that's actually shocking. You would think it would be about your friends or your family or
Part
your neighbors.
Yeah.
Like it's them, not me. But you know what? What
Right.
Dr. Ruth would say, look in the mirror, decide what it is about your own behavior, your own actions, your own words.
Know thyself.
That may be inadvertently causing these wedges to form between you and other people. So I think that's core to this conversation. What are you doing?
Right.
And how can it be used for more positivity?
Allison, that's so important to be able, we need to be able to look at ourselves.
Honestly.
Exactly.
Yes.
Openly and honestly and
Yes.
saying, how do I feel? And why do I feel this way? And what can I do to make myself feel better or be more productive and so forth? I think that's so important. We have to separate it from today. I see a lot of narcissism because of the telephone and everybody's posting and this, look where I am, look what I'm doing. That bothers people, particularly our young people. Why am I left out? Why aren't I there? How come I'm not having a good time? We have to stop that. But we have to look in that mirror and talk to ourselves and say, okay, who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? What's my purpose in life? With my Greek background, there are a lot of things that I remember from Greek philosophers, and there's one that I've subscribed to over the years, and you're gonna have fun.
I want to hear.
It's like a Greek philosopher once said, "I have a wish to die young, but as late in life as possible." Okay, so you think about that.
Yes,
and to me, I have subscribed to that. Because I feel that if you have a youthful attitude, a youthful heart, that you don't feel like you're rushing life. You still have time, and you're anxious to be able to and excited to be able to learn about things that are going on. It makes you feel good when you feel young at heart. Many times, I'll tell you the truth. I might be in the car and I'll crank up the radio and I'm listening to music, from when I was growing up as a teenager, and it's a flashback. And all of a sudden, you relive that. You relive that time period and you say, those were great years and I can still remember them today and apply them to what I'm doing now.
100%.
Exactly.
I love that. And I'll tell you something about Dr. Ruth maybe you don't know.
Go ahead.
Do you know that she collected miniature turtles?
I remember that.
She had hundreds of them all over her apartment.
Yeah. Tell the story behind that.
Most of them were given as gifts. And this is very illustrative of what you're talking about. She thought they were a wonderful symbol of taking risks. And in order to live a full life with positivity and energy and full of connections, at some point, you got to come out of your shell. You got to take a risk. And so she thought the turtle was a lovely metaphor for that. So we should all harness our inner turtle and do what you're describing, which is, play the music, go dance, engage with your neighbors, join a community group. But you know what? All this positivity, it's not going to happen if you stay home, close the door, and just stream a show. All night long.
I know.
You got to put yourself out there and harness your inner turtle. Stick your neck out.
Take a risk. Stick your neck out. Take a risk.
Yes.
No, I love this because, when you're talking about, 100 ways to beat loneliness, live a happier and more meaningful life. Back to the loneliness issue, because that is a problem for a lot of people. And not just, for example, the elderly, who might be in a situation where they don't have that much company coming in to visit them, whether it's assisted living or nursing homes, wherever it happens to be. But loneliness is something that we all have to deal with at any age. Because many times, you can be in a room with a bunch of people and you feel all alone.
Well, I know about this so well. I have 2 children who are now young adults, starting jobs, being in school, trying to meet new people. And it's hard. We're not saying this is easy, but the best way to overcome that discomfort is to stop thinking and just do. Put yourself in those situations where you're going to be meeting people. The more you do it, like tying your shoes when you're a toddler.
Sure.
First, it's hard.
Yeah.
You don't know how to tie your shoes.
Right.
And then likewise, when you're a young adult and you're going to these networking scenarios, it may feel really intimidating at first.
Yeah.
But you keep going and it'll get easier and easier. So it's just putting on the training wheels, and then one day you're going to take them off.
Exactly.
And it's going to feel better, and you're going to feel better because you made the effort.
You know, we were talking about having this sense of looking at yourself and finding out who you are. And that's important to do. But, okay, let's go past that. And you say, but when you know, when a person, whether it's yourself or somebody else, when they spend too much time thinking about, you know, their ailments or whatever happens to be, they get bogged down with that, and it becomes a drag on them. But if you are not thinking about yourself that way, and you're busy with whatever it happens to be, ever notice like you may have, I don't know, I have a cold or something, or something else that might be bothering you. If you're involved, if you're really immersed in something, you forget. And someone, you know, will say, "Oh, how's your back?" And, "Oh, I forgot about it. I was so busy."
Yeah.
But that's true.
Well, here's the trick. When you are missing something to do and your time isn't well spent, positively spent, then you will gripe about what's bothering you.
Yeah.
Once you fill it with activities that you actually enjoy, and here's the real trick, authenticity. Do activities that you actually like.
Yes.
Not that your spouse likes.
Right.
Not that your child likes. Not that your friend likes or your neighbor. What do you enjoy doing? If you're truthful about what makes you happy, if you don't like going for bike rides, and that's what your spouse or your partner or your kid wants to do on the weekend, then you're not going to be happy, and then you're going to gripe.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you think about what looks good to you, and pursue that, not what looks good on your resume, but what actually authentically makes you joyful.
You bet.
You know what also is going to happen?
Yeah.
When you do that activity, you're likely going to meet like-minded people who are also interested in that activity. So if you like cooking, great. Maybe go to a cooking class.
Sure.
If you hate gardening, you don't want to get your hands dirty, you know what? Avoid the gardening club. Do what works for you. And that's where you're going to meet the right people that will make you happy.
Of course. I'm going to bring up something else that I know that Dr. Ruth was high on, and so am I, and that's spirituality. You know, living at a higher level of consciousness. That, to me, is very important because, I mean, you know, we all have to deal with the obvious, the material world. You need the money. You need whatever it happens to be, your job. You need to, you know, work at something, be successful at it to provide for yourself, for your family. But when you are thinking and understanding that there is a creator, one creator for all mankind in a good way. And just use the basic 10 commandments, for goodness sakes, okay? It's just a great way of living your life. To me, that's very, very important because when you have that sense and that understanding in your own mind of where you came from, why you're here, where you're going, you not only love and respect, and I use that word love, very important, love. You not only love and respect yourself, but you do it for other people as well. Because you look at everybody and you say, hey, we're sisters, we're brothers. Okay, we belong to the human family.
What's interesting about this, too, is that we as a society, and also in many Western European countries, too, formal religion has fallen by the wayside. A way to re-engage, you don't have to, let's say, be a congregant. You could join. But these houses of worship, no matter the denomination, no matter what religion, are also what we call third spaces or third places. It's not home.
Right.
It's not work. It's somewhere else to go to be in community with people who live in the nearby area who you might want to get to know more. And many of these houses of worship now have movie nights. They have single nights. They have trips to go on together. So if you're looking for your way in, how to join, we've talked about clubs like bicycling or gardening. Another way of doing that is through spiritual centers.
Yeah, those are good
because
connections.
It's not just about religion anymore. These have other opportunities for engaging. And so I think you're so right. It's so important.
Very
and they're
important.
right here. They're down the street. They're down the block.
You take advantage of that, and you also recognize that, you know, there are saints who are walking the street, who have never been in a church, a synagogue, a mosque, whatever. They're just beautiful people, and we have to look for that opportunity. There's a quotation that I also like to use often, and it relates to what we're talking about. Do you want to be a host to God or a hostage to your ego? And when you think about that, it's simple. Do you want to recognize what we were just talking about and doing good and living that good life of love and peace and understanding and respect? Or do you want to waste all of your time on something that's so temporary, the material world?
How do you do that, Ernie?
Well, I do it by reading and watching videos and listening to those things that are important to me every day. I do it every day. And, you have to feed the soul. And I do that. And I pray a lot. And but I do it in a positive, uplifting way.
Yes, of course.
It's not like, because I grew up in a home where my grandfather was a Greek Orthodox priest. He was one of the first ordained in America. He was one of the first 100. And he gave me a lot of good things. But I grew up in that environment. That was very helpful. So it was positive and uplifting. Very all faiths. He would bring everybody into our home.
That could be a book.
It could be.
That could be a book I would want to read.
Yeah, I think it could be. I have a lot of interesting stories.
Yes.
But I think that, that's why I always go back to the center, home. What you help your children to understand, what information you give them, what stories. The best gift, Allison, I'm not telling you anything you don't know as a great mom. The best gift you can give your child is a sense of self-esteem, good self-esteem. If they feel good about themselves, no matter what they end up doing in life, they'll always feel confident and comfortable.
Yes, I love that. And I feel also coupled with that is a good sense of family history, who they are, where they've come from. I know you know this, but both of my parents died relatively young. My mom didn't make it to my wedding, and my father died shortly after 9/11 and only met my oldest child, who was only a toddler when my father passed away. And I talk about their grandparents all the time. I make a distinction. I don't just talk about my parents. I orient the conversation so they can actually have a relationship with their maternal grandmother and grandfather for themselves, to understand what they stood for, what was important to them, the character traits that I think they inherited from their grandmother and their grandfather.
Nice.
So even though they have passed away, they can still be present in my children's life. And I think that actually helps them fuel their trajectories to be positive and to be successful. And so I think it's equal. I think there's this wonderful sense of place, which you're talking about. Religion and spirituality, of course, helps. And so this is all of a piece. And
picture.
I love it. I love it.
Allison, okay, so we've got this book now, The Joy of Connections, right? You're very involved and active with this. Before we run, tell us everything else that you're doing, because I know you do a lot, what future projects you may have in mind, and how people, by the way, can reach you. Someone says, hey, I loved Allison. She was great. I love what she was talking about. I need some help with something. Tell us about what you're doing and how people can reach out to you.
I love that question because you're right. I love talking with folks about whatever is on their mind. And I'm on social media at A. Gilbert Writer everywhere. And my website is AllisonGilbert.com. And I'm doing a lot of workshops these days to help people bring their own experiences to the page. A lot of people want to write their own stories, whether for publication or just their own family. So we're leading in 2025, at least right now, 4 retreats if you want to get your writing on the page. And we're doing it locally here in New York City, and we're also doing it up in the Berkshires in Massachusetts.
So they can reach out to you and become part of these workshops, 100%,
right? 100%. I would love to work with anyone.
You must love doing that.
I love it.
Great contact.
Exactly. It kind of fuels me so much because when I write, this is my 6th book, The Joy of Connections, and it's a lot of time by myself. This was written in community, of course, and in collaboration with Dr. Ruth, but there was a lot of time where it's just me in front of the laptop. And so I love being with people. And so these writer workshops, both in New York City and up in the Berkshires, are meant for us to be in community together, look at each other in the eye, and bring our dreams of writing to life.
You know, Allison, people who have been watching you and listening to you are saying, wow, this is a very special person. And she is, folks. You know, there's another, I love quotations. affirmations. There was another one. Your life should speak louder than your words. And, you know, your life is an example. You don't have to say anything because what you've done is demonstrative of who you are. But you're a very special person. Allison Gilbert, such a joy to have you here. And we go back, as we said, since 1989, and we got to keep going, right?
We've got to keep going, Ernie. It is the greatest honor and privilege of my life to call you a friend. And thank you for having me on.
God bless you and your family.
Really appreciate
okay, Allison?
it, yes.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Wonderful. We're going to do this again and again, really. Don't forget the joy of connections. Okay, this is Dr. Ruth Westheimer, but we've been talking with Allison Gilbert, who's been fantastic. Go out and get the book. You're going to love this thing, okay? Stay happy, everybody, and stay positive, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.